You're covered in gold.
14-karat gold? Take a hike, boss. I'm running things now.
All hail King Homer.
Hey guys, Rafi here from the Endgame Investor, and today I want to talk about culture. But first, I had a few questions on the stuff behind me. This weekend, on Sunday night, actually, is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, or the New Year of the world celebrated by the Jews. Year of 5,783. Maybe it's Jubilee year, maybe it's not. I guess we'll figure it out, because if the Endgame happens this coming year, then I guess it will be a Jubilee. As for what's behind me, that is a ram's horn. This is a piece of wood made out of a tree. And this is an oryx horn. Why? Two of them are shofars, which we blow on Rosh Hashanah, signifying the coming of the king to review his soldiers. And why do I have two animal horns and a piece of wood behind me? Because I don't believe in tree rights or animal rights. And humans don't have horns.
Guards! Yeah? Remove the human's lower horn and prepare it to be eaten by me.
I only believe in human rights and human responsibilities towards animals to a certain extent, such as not to torture them, but I don't believe in animal rights because there are none. In any case, why culture? Well, a mistake that is often made, even by the people on our side of the monetary equation, is that hyperinflation is a monetary phenomenon. It is not. It is a psychological phenomenon. Everything leading up to it, how consumer prices rise and rise and rise over a long course of time, is a monetary phenomenon. But hyperinflation is actually qualitatively different because it is a switch, a psychological switch that happens in a culture, in a group of people, when they suddenly realize that they're being stolen from. Central banks can steal from the public, from the populace, for a very long time before they turn around and realize that someone's got their hand in their pocket. And once the public figure this out, then they attack the central bank directly. It's like pickpocketing versus trying to stick your hand into somebody's pocket while he's punching you in the face repeatedly. It's much harder to do the second thing and accept the bruises and take the injuries and do all that without getting killed, because when the public figures it out, they will attack the central banks by attacking their currency. And why is it a cultural issue? Well, I'm going to show you two examples, one from India and one from Germany. Germany has hyperinflation embedded in its culture. They understand what it is, even if none of them alive today have gone through it, or very, very few of them. Maybe there's a guy who's like 110 years old somewhere in a nursing home.
Good news, everyone. I'm still technically alive.
But they definitely have it in their cultural memory, and it was brought down to them from 2 or 3 generations ago. And because they understand what it is, they will be the first to attack a currency, by which I mean get out in front of the price increases and step up their purchase of goods and services. And at that point, the rate of price increases has absolutely nothing to do with monetary policy whatsoever. It doesn't matter how much the central bank increases interest rates. It doesn't even matter how much they decrease the money supply. If the public decides to get rid of their money, no matter how much or little they have, immediately upon receiving it, then that is hyperinflation, where the desire to hold cash balances falls to absolute zero and prices go to infinity. Or in other words, the public discovers that the central bank has essentially constructed a Ponzi scheme on its own reserves. And so, for a very specific reason, I believe this process has begun in Germany, which logically would be the first country in Europe to attack the currency before any other country does. And once the Germans do it, it will spread to the rest of the Eurozone and out from there. Now, first things first, I wanted to go back to Murray Rothbard's description of hyperinflation as a weapon of the public against the central banks rather than as a tragedy. This is page 1019 of Man, Economy, and State. Here, Rothbard talks about the Great Reset. He doesn't use those terms exactly, as that is more of a modern term since the World Economic Forum took over the ultra-villainy of the world. Here, Rothbard talks about that goal that power elite have and how the public stops it. Many economists, he says, and other people assume that the state could accomplish this goal of total domination, basically. Actually, it could not, for there is an ultimate limit on inflation, a very wide one to be sure, but a terrible limit that will in the end, conquer any inflation. Paradoxically, this is the phenomenon of runaway inflation or hyperinflation. And here he describes what is going on in the world right now. The relatively fixed income groups are wiped out. Production declines drastically, sending up prices further as people lose the incentive to work. Wonder why we have problems filling jobs and finding workers? This is why, since they must spend much of their time getting rid of money. The main desideratum becomes getting hold of real goods, whatever they may be, and spending money as soon as received. When this runaway stage is reached, the economy in effect breaks down, the market is virtually ended, and society reverts to a state of virtual barter and complete impoverishment. Except, of course, for the people with real money. And in his final sentence on this, when all other limits and forms of persuasion fail, this is the only way, through chaos and economic breakdown, for the people to force a return to the hard commodity money of the free market. Basically, once a central bank can no longer extract value by printing money, there is no point to inflation because the inflation of the money supply any further does not increase their purchasing power for other goods and services against the people. And then the people can effect a reset. There's one place where I disagree with Rothbard, and it is this sentence. Here he says, talking about 1923 Weimar, in a theoretical sense, if a world state outlaws gold and silver and establishes a unitary fiat money, which it proceeds to inflate until a runaway boom destroys it, there will be no pre-existing money on the market. The task of reconstruction will then be enormously more difficult. I disagree with that sentence because there is no possible way that there is no pre-existing money on the market because of the Misesian regression principle that all prices must be indexed to the past. If gold and silver are outlawed, it doesn't mean there won't be a pre-existing money. It just means there won't be a pre-existing legal money. But gold and silver will still circulate as the real money, even if outlawed, because in a world of black markets, black market is just a bad term for real market. There's a real market and there's a fake market. The fake market is where the prices don't work. And that's why you go into the black market underground. And it's the only market that's real. So it would be a black money market, except a black yellow money market, or like a Pittsburgh Steelers money market or something like that, where you'd have yellow gold being the black money market. Let's talk about culture now. Why do I think this is actually happening in Germany now? Or why is there's a big piece of evidence that this cultural shift, this psychological shift from people trying to hoard money to people trying to get rid of money and get out in front of the price increases, that has actually happened already? Because of this chart. This is producer prices month over month in Germany. From 1 month to the next month, how much producer prices have risen. Now, in Germany, you see this crazy spike to about 8% in the last month. I think this is for August 2022. It is an all-time high, way higher than anything that we've seen since 1953, it looks like. And this is just the last few months before this huge, crazy spike. Now here, this is from the German bureaucratic something or other bureau that counts a bunch of beans. It says, this is from Trading Economics, on a monthly basis, producer prices were up 7.9%, also the most on record, after a 5.3% rise in July. And here's the key, way higher than consensus of a 1.6% gain. When a Bureau of Economic Bean Counting uses the word way in describing the extremities of price increases, you know that either the people behind there don't know how to write or they're really shocked. Basically, if they were expecting a 1.6% gain and they ended up with a 7.9% gain, what does that say? That says, my friends, that the Keynesian econometric models that they use, which don't take into account human psychological changes, they just extrapolate past trends into the future based on whatever equation they use. The psychology in Germany is changing. Why? Because they understand what hyperinflation is and they know what to do. You get out in front of it and you get rid of the monetary medium and you buy whatever the hell you can.
Shut up and take my money.
And so the discrepancy between a 1.6% rise and an actual 7.9% rise month to month, which is about 96% annual, that is a hyperinflationary number. And now let's move to another culture that understands real money, and that is India. India, see the picture on the right? That is an Indian bride. What do they do in India when they get married? They wear a bunch of gold. It is the Indian custom from days gone by or something, whatever they call that in India, to wear gold at a wedding and to save their money in their gold jewelry. When they need to make a withdrawal from their savings, they sell a piece of their jewelry. They save in gold jewelry. and they have a culture that is accustomed to using gold until, of course, the fiat era took everyone over, but they still have it in their blood, and good for them. And you see here on the bottom here is the gold premium in India over New York spot prices. It has been about 15% since July, when it suddenly rocketed at the beginning of the month. And we've seen that since also about, looks like May, and also since July, it's continued into July, that the decline in the gold stockpiles at COMEX has accelerated. And this slope has remained pretty constant since around May. And the total amount in dollars of the gold that is drained from the COMEX is just about 17.5 billion, using an average price of what looks to be $1,800 during this time. It's going to be around that sum. That is not that much money. Why? Because gold is very undervalued right now. My contention is that a lot of this gold is going to India, which is importing gold at about $13 billion a month. Not all of it obviously is going to India, but a lot of it is. Why? Because they have a cultural understanding of gold, maybe less so hyperinflation per se, but they understand gold and they move to it when the currency is dying, which it is. And so my point today is that the Keynesian econometricians that calculate price increases and call it inflation, they do not understand the psychological phenomenon of hyperinflation, because psychology doesn't play into their models. Keynes specifically said he has no idea what animal spirits are. He calls it animal spirits, which is just his stupid word for psychology. But as the Austrian school understands, economics is the interaction between humans, not between robots and machines. They have psychology, they have thoughts, and they have feelings. It's about exchange between people. And people's psychology can change. And that psychology is changing in Germany and in India. And it will spread. And once everyone understands that central banks are robbing them, the pickpocket central banks will not be able to sneak their theft anymore. Instead, the public will turn around and start pummeling them in the face, and then they will all run away to Epstein Island to spend the rest of their days in paradise. This is Rafi of the Endgame Investor. If you enjoyed my missive, then please subscribe to a 2-week free trial of the Endgame Investor, where I talk about this stuff more academically, or you can become my patron on Patreon to get a more biblical perspective on government, economics, and monetary policy. This coming week, we will be talking about the military draft, biblical position on that, and whether it is legal, isn't, or tyranny. It is. Happy New Year to all Jews celebrating. Happy New Year to the world. Happy Rosh Hashanah. We're going into what I think will be the endgame year for the entire dollar system. This is Rafi, the Endgame Investor, and I'll see you in a few days.